Hey Freedom Lovers, this is Dr. Peterson Pierre with America's Frontline Doctors bringing you today's Daily Dose. Each year, about 3,400 babies in the U.S. die from sudden infant death syndrome, also known as SIDS. It's the unexplained death of an infant under 1 year old, even after a thorough investigation and autopsy. Sometimes it falls under the broader category of sudden unexpected infant death, or SUID, which includes accidental suffocation and other causes. SIDS is described as rare, yet it's the leading cause of infant death. Scientists say they still don't know the cause, but one thing they claim with absolute certainty: vaccines are not to blame. But how can you be so sure? SIDS was virtually unheard of before routine vaccines became widespread in the 1960s. As mass vaccination programs rolled out, SIDS cases rose sharply. By 1973, the spike was so pronounced that it became its own category in the International Classification of Diseases, which is maintained by the World Health Organization. SIDS cases typically appear at 2 months, which is when infants commonly begin their routine vaccinations. The US, the most heavily vaccinated nation in the world, also has the highest infant mortality rate among developed countries. You think that's a coincidence? The CDC tracks SUID cases in a registry based on reports from medical examiners who use a form to record each infant's medical history, including whether any vaccines were given in the 72 hours before death. But here's the rub. Medical examiners are not required to fill out the form. And even when they do, they can selectively report data, which begs the question, what's the point of the registry? Florida's trying to fix that. On October 14th, Republican State Senator Elena Garcia introduced SB 188, which would make it mandatory for examiners to report key details. This is absolutely ridiculous that we even need an SB to make them do their job properly, including any vaccines received within the 90 days before death. That's a crucial change. A 2021 study found that over 75% of SIDS cases reported in VAERS from 1990 to 2019 occurred within 1 week of vaccination, with spikes in the first 2 days, suggesting that the 72-hour mark on the CDC's form is not far back enough. The study suggested that ingredients in vaccines like aluminum could inflame the brainstem, disrupting breathing and heart rate. Evidence of an association between vaccines and SIDS has largely been suppressed. That's why Florida's bill matters and why every state should follow. If safety is a priority, of course. But it's still not enough. Police investigators who are assigned to sudden infant death cases, usually from child abuse units, often cannot or do not examine vaccination histories. Why not? In 2023, one such former investigator told Dr. Ben Tapper that vaccines were consistently omitted from SIDS reports. In her city of 350,000, she investigated 3 to 4 SIDS cases a month, a striking number for a condition called rare. Medical examiners, doctors, and law enforcement must be empowered to examine vaccination histories in SIDS cases. But even then, yet another barrier exists. The CDC does not make this data available for research. Even after a researcher receives Institutional Review Board approval to collect the data, signs the CDC's data use agreement, submits the study online, and provides a detailed justification for the request, the CDC can still refuse to release the data, or aggregate or redact it so that it's impossible to study the links between specific vaccines, timing, and SIDS, which begs the question, what are they hiding? We should not have unexplained child deaths. We should have answers from decades of research. Instead, the medical industrial complex has blocked transparency with regulatory hurdles, trickery, and disinformation campaigns. In 1979, the ICD eliminated vaccination as an official cause of death, preventing it from appearing on death certificates, even though public health officials acknowledge that vaccines can cause death. In fact, that's precisely why Congress passed the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act of 1986, which created VAERS and the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program. So the medical industrial complex came up with an explanation for SIDS deaths. In the early 1990s, the American Academy of Pediatrics, we all know how I feel about them, they're horrible, launched the Back to Sleep program, blaming SIDS on babies sleeping on their stomachs, as though babies for millennia have not slept on their stomachs. But while SIDS rates dropped, other unexplained deaths occurred. More recently, Dr. Brian Hooker, Chief Scientific Officer at Children's Health Defense, noted a striking pattern. In 2020, when lockdowns led to a drop in childhood vaccinations, guess what happened? SIDS rates also dropped. Then in 2022, after COVID-19 shots were rolled out, the CDC reported an uptick in SIDS, the first increase in 2 decades. Experts claimed to be puzzled by the rise, but they were still certain it had nothing to do with the COVID shots. Oh no, not possible. If we want real answers, we need to ask the questions we're being told not to ask. Vaccination histories must be fully reported, accessible to researchers, and carefully examined by investigators. Lawmakers at both the state and federal levels have a duty to make this happen. Families deserve the truth, and children deserve life. No child death should ever remain unexplained. Ladies and gentlemen, only the truth will set you free. Stay tuned for the next Daily Dose.